Once upon a time, in a quiet suburban neighborhood lived a man named Ethan Holloway. Ethan was not reckless, loud, or visibly broken. He was the kind of person people described as doing fine. He had a steady job, a small apartment, and routines that looked normal from the outside. But inside, Ethan carried a constant sense of dull exhaustion, a feeling that something essential in him was slowly fading. Late at night, when the world went silent and expectations disappeared, he turned to a habit he told himself was harmless. It started as curiosity, then relief, then routine. Over the years, it became a private ritual that followed stress, loneliness, boredom, and even success. Ethan never thought of himself as addicted. He believed he was in control because no one else knew. Yet each morning, he woke up slightly less motivated, slightly less present, slightly more disconnected from the life he imagined he would be living by now. Ethan used to have ambitions that felt alive. He wanted meaningful relationships, creative work, a sense of pride in who he was becoming. But those desires slowly lost their urgency. Effort felt heavier, rejection felt scarier, risk felt unnecessary. Whenever discomfort appeared, there was an easy escape waiting behind a screen. Over time, Ethan noticed that real intimacy felt awkward, real challenges felt overwhelming, and real emotions felt muted. The world seemed flatter, colors less vivid, joy shorter, pain easier to avoid but harder to process. One night, after closing yet another tab and staring at his reflection in the dark screen, a thought surfaced that he had avoided for years. He wasn't being destroyed loudly. He was being emptied quietly, and he wondered, not for the first time, what kind of man he might have been if he had never trained his mind to escape instead of engage. What Ethan experienced is far more common than most people are willing to admit, because the damage pornography causes rarely looks dramatic at first. It doesn't announce itself with chaos. It works subtly, rewiring desire, dulling motivation, and reshaping how the brain responds to effort, reward, and connection. Pornography doesn't just affect what you watch, it affects how you feel about yourself when no one is watching. And the most dangerous part is that it convinces you nothing is wrong, while it quietly changes everything. At a neurological level, pornography hijacks the brain's reward system. Dopamine, the chemical responsible for motivation and anticipation, is released in unnaturally high amounts. The brain learns to associate pleasure with zero effort and infinite novelty. Over time, this conditions you to crave stimulation without struggle. Real life, which requires patience, vulnerability, and persistence, begins to feel underwhelming by comparison. Studies in neuroscience have shown that repeated exposure to high dopamine stimuli reduces sensitivity to normal rewards. This means that what once brought excitement, connection, or pride now feels dull. Not because life became boring, but because your brain was trained to expect excess. This is where the internal damage begins. Motivation weakens not because you became lazy, but because your reward system was overloaded. Ambition requires delayed gratification. Pornography teaches the opposite lesson. It teaches that desire should be satisfied instantly, privately, and without consequence. Over time, this lesson seeps into every area of life. Work feels tedious, relationships feel demanding, discipline feels unnecessary. Why struggle when relief is one click away? Psychologists have observed that excessive pornography use is associated with increased anxiety, decreased self-esteem, and emotional numbness. But the most overlooked effect is identity erosion. Each time you choose the easy escape over the difficult action, you reinforce a self-image that avoids discomfort. You stop seeing yourself as someone who confronts challenges. You become someone who manages feelings instead of mastering behavior. This doesn't happen consciously. It happens gradually through repetition. Pornography also reshapes how intimacy is perceived. Real connection involves uncertainty, effort, rejection, and compromise. Pornography removes all of that. It offers control without vulnerability, pleasure without presence, desire without responsibility. Over time, the nervous system begins to associate intimacy with performance rather than connection. This is why many people report feeling disconnected during real relationships, struggling with attraction, or feeling emotionally absent even when physically present. The mind has been trained on stimulation, not bonding. Halfway through this video, if this is making you uncomfortable, that discomfort matters. It means something inside you recognizes the cost. Take a moment to like the video, not out of habit, but as a signal to yourself that you're willing to face what most people avoid. Awareness is the first form of resistance. Another hidden consequence is how pornography affects energy and focus. Dopamine spikes are followed by dopamine crashes. After the temporary high, the brain experiences a drop that feels like fatigue, fog, or restlessness. Over time, this pattern drains mental clarity. Tasks that require concentration feel harder. Goals that require sustained effort feel distant. You may not feel depressed, but you feel flat. Not sad, but unmotivated. This state is dangerous because it feels normal once you've lived in it long enough. There is also the issue of secrecy. Anything repeatedly done in isolation, hidden from others, shapes character. Secrecy fragments the self. You begin living with an internal divide between who you present and who you are alone. This division weakens integrity, not because you are immoral, but because consistency disappears. And integrity is the foundation of confidence. When your actions and values don't align, self-respect erodes quietly. Many people argue that pornography is harmless because it doesn't hurt anyone directly, but the harm is internal. It trains avoidance. It conditions instant gratification. It weakens the muscles of discipline, patience, and presence. Over time, it steals hunger. Not sexual hunger, but hunger for life. Hunger to build, hunger to pursue, hunger to connect deeply with another human being. The most deceptive part is that quitting doesn't immediately feel rewarding. When the stimulus is removed, the brain protests. Dopamine levels temporarily drop. This is why boredom, irritability, and restlessness often increase at first. The mind has lost its shortcut, but this discomfort is not damage. It is recalibration. It is the nervous system relearning how to find satisfaction in effort rather than excess. Research on behavioral addiction shows that the brain is remarkably adaptable. Neuroplasticity means that what was conditioned can be unconditioned, but the process requires consistency, not motivation. You don't wait to feel inspired to stop. You stop so inspiration can return. As dopamine sensitivity recovers, motivation slowly rebuilds, focus sharpens, emotions feel stronger, sometimes uncomfortably so. But this intensity is not weakness, it is aliveness returning. This is why many people who quit report a strange combination of difficulty and clarity. Life feels harder, but also more real. Challenges feel heavier, but also meaningful. The numbness fades, replaced by discomfort that actually points somewhere. Pain becomes information again instead of something to escape. Pornography thrives in isolation, boredom, and emotional avoidance. The antidote is not shame. Shame reinforces the cycle by driving you back to secrecy. The antidote is responsibility to choose actions that strengthen you instead of soothe you. Responsibility to sit with discomfort long enough to learn from it. Responsibility to rebuild self-trust through small, consistent commitments. Ethan's change did not come from a dramatic moment of willpower, it came from exhaustion. He grew tired of feeling divided. He started with one rule: no more escaping when discomfort appeared. He didn't replace the habit with motivation. He replaced it with friction. He removed easy access. He filled the empty time with movement, reading, and uncomfortable stillness. At first it felt worse, then it felt different, then slowly it felt better. What returned surprised him most was not sexual energy, but drive. He wanted things again. Real things. Difficult things. He felt present in conversations. Challenges felt meaningful. The fog lifted not because life got easier, but because he stopped numbing himself to it. He wasn't becoming someone new. He was recovering someone old. This is the truth few people want to hear. Pornography doesn't ruin you instantly. It trains you slowly. It doesn't steal your future dramatically. It erodes it quietly. And stopping doesn't make you perfect. It makes you available. Available to discomfort. Available to growth. Available to a life that demands effort but gives depth in return. So the question isn't whether pornography is good or bad in the abstract. The real question is deeply personal. What has it been costing you without you noticing? And who might you become if you stop choosing escape over engagement not once, but consistently, starting today?